Is the American president America's CEO? Is the American president America's boss, America's CEO? Seems that Donald Trump acted as if, but we also know that the last three presidents, especially, are being talked about as having re-inaugurated the executive presidency. So under George W. Bush, Barack Obama, and Donald Trump, you saw a president that used executive orders regularly, and there was a certain assumption of leadership. And I mean, if you look at it from this lens only, you could say, yes, of course, he's the chief executive, so that's the CEO. But if we think of that word CEO, it gives us still the wrong idea. The CEO of a business can, but doesn't have to be, beholden to a board. But the presidency in the United States is only one out of three official branches of government. If you consider the media as an unofficial branch of government too, that some people call it a fourth branch, but officially there's three branches. The first branch talked about in the American Constitution is Congress. This follows the Constitution being opened by the famous phrase, "We the people." It's not the president that comes first, it's Congress. It's people from the House of Representatives and from Senate, and both representatives and senators are directly voted for by the people. Now, you could complain about gerrymandering, about first past the post voting, and all of these complaints are legitimate, but they don't change the fact that irrespective of how the voting system works in detail, you have, as the really most important branch here, the legislature. How do we know it's most important? Well, it concretely controls money. If you follow the money, you end at Congress. The president can decide all kinds of things. Eventually, Congress will decide over funding. The president is commander-in-chief, but that oftentimes also is a little bit misinterpreted. The president cannot declare war. However, we haven't really declared war recently, and so typically you have that pattern of somehow sliding into a confrontation that may or may not be called a war, but officially Congress has to declare war. And so when you look at the presidency more closely, you see that the metaphor of CEO is not helpful. But you could say that this was one of the problems with the Trump presidency, where you could say both sides, Trump and those he led or presided over, came away disappointed because the expectation is wrong. The president is not the chief leader. The president is not the boss. The president may have something called the bully pulpit, which means nothing else that the president can talk loudly and influentially. But we may have seen now that better presidents might be those who actually are connected to what goes on in Congress, in Washington, in the States. So the expectation that the president has all the power gives both the president and the people the wrong idea. And if you believe you run for president and then you can do all these things, you're in for disappointment. if you're the people and you think you can vote this person to office and then that person will deliver for you, you'll also be in for disappointment. So arguably, I don't think anybody saw George W. Bush as some kind of savior. But those of us who are old enough remember that there were some people who thought Barack Obama was a savior. And then there were some people who believed Donald Trump was the savior. I don't think anybody believed Joe Biden was the savior. Some may have thought Bernie could have been, but this savior expectation is not healthy. It's first of all wrong because it overestimates the power of the president. And it can be dangerous because the president and people enabling that president might then be interested in elevating the power of the president. Elevating that power can come also, as we've seen, through indirect routes by putting Supreme Court justices on the courts that might follow a certain political line. I mean, in practice, the Supreme Court is a little bit more complicated than activists on both sides may want people to believe. Justices never really do what they're supposed to be doing according to the person putting them into office. Luckily, or regrettably, depending on where you are. So the CEO metaphor can lead to wrong expectations or wrong trajectories. Luckily, a system like that of the US is relatively stable, and we've seen it has had the ability to survive Donald Trump, his term number one. It's debatable whether there will be a term number two. I can't speculate about this. I could speculate, but I don't want to. But no matter how we see this, from the leaders' perspectives, from the president's perspective, it's not a helpful matter. From the people's perspective, it's not helpful either, because it allows the people then to outsource their responsibility. Like with the savior expectation, I would still remember a media clip that said, "Oh, Obama is president. I don't have to pay rent ever." You may have seen that too. Of course, that was a completely unrealistic expectation. And no matter where you stand on Obama, you know that people had that hope about him. He fulfilled some expectations, others he didn't, because guess what? He's a human being and not a savior. Donald Trump also didn't fulfill all expectations, depending on where you stand, luckily or sadly. But if you have these expectations to your politicians, you're just asking to be disappointed. And you're also putting yourself in a position where you don't see agency on your part. See, politics in a democratic country does not work on the level of leadership, primarily. It works from the ground up. If you want to go into politics, as I sometimes encourage my students, you may think you need all kinds of money. And I get that as a response. I asked them, "Do you want to run for office?" And I said, "I don't have the money, and I don't have the money to be president." Young people, president. Disappointingly, I tell them, "Well, I'm asking about school board, local office, state level." Yeah, because that's the secret to winning politics, is to work yourself up to win the lower levels. And then on the basis of that, maybe you have success on a higher level. But if we outsource the responsibility of individual citizens to some savior figure, We're not seeing our responsibility, our civic duty, our need to actually get involved. I'm not saying that everybody should be a politician. Probably not be good. Not everybody is cut out for that. I'm not cut out for that. I don't think I can be a politician. And I don't think I want to be. Everybody has different areas where they're successful. You may not want to be, but you can do other things to fulfill your civic duty. Now, so we all have to, as citizens, find out a way to give back to community. That means we also have to believe that we can do something to promote the general welfare, to promote community, to promote democracy, to promote a healthy living together. Yeah, so when we think of only be us as kind of workers in a corporation, that's America, and the CEO tells us what to do, that's not what democracy is. We, the people, are responsible for our welfare, and through the politicians we vote for, we may be able to get some things done, but we have to actively monitor, we have to actively work to make sure that promises are fulfilled and that we do our part. So this is a whole bunch of reasons where the CEO metaphor isn't just misleading, but also somehow dangerous. And I wish we would stop using this. Thank you very much. This is Erratic Attempts. I'm Dr. Philip Kneis, and see you soon.